Senator McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr President. I'd like to also just acknowledge the Tonginjira women from Central Australia in the public gallery. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health, Senator Fierravanti-Wells. Can the Minister confirm the Turnbull government $715 million cut to public hospitals from 2017 to 20 is equivalent to 2,010 nurses a year, 198,000 cataract extractions, 27,000 knee replacements, or 118,000 births?
The Minister representing the Minister for Health, Senator Fierravanti-Wells.
Thank you, Mr President, and can I thank the senator for her question. Now, contrary to the lies that you have just peddled, the truth is that funding for public hospitals will continue to grow.
I'll ask you to withdraw that particular imputation.
I withdraw
Senator
that.
Fierravanti-Wells.
Contrary to the false information that Senator Malarndirri has just indicated to us, Senator McCarthy, I beg your pardon, has indicated to us, the truth is that funding for public hospitals will continue to grow. The truth is that funding for hospitals is increasing to record levels every year. Commonwealth funding for public hospital services has increased from $13.3 billion in 2012-13 to a record $22.7 billion in 2020-21. All up, our government is committed to investing more than $103.3 billion over the next 4 years. This means that Commonwealth funding continues to increase for all states and territories. And can I remind those opposite that in the 6 years under the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd Labor governments, you only delivered $73.4 billion. In contrast, as I have indicated, we are delivering over $103 billion over the next 4 years. And of course, when you were in government, those opposite, all that Kevin Rudd and Nicola Roxon were concerned about were the photo shoots in front of the hospitals. Remember Dr Rudd and Nurse Roxon in their white coats? That's all you were interested in. All they did, their so-called health reform, was them travelling around the countryside, dressing up as Dr Rudd and Nurse Roxon and finding the next photo opportunity. 100 hospitals that you visited. And every morning the Department of Defence would get the Department of Health would get a phone call saying, "Oh, which hospital they were going to." That's
Senator
all it was for you.
Wells. Senator McCarthy, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. In 2016 to 17, emergency departments saw a record number of people with 7.8 million presentations, and people are waiting longer than ever for critical elective surgery under the Turnbull government. Minister, how much longer will Australians have to wait for critical elective surgery as a result of the Turnbull government's most recent cut to public hospitals?
Senator Fierravanti-Wells.
Thank you. I don't accept the premise of your question, Senator. The government has put forward recently a generous funding offer to the states and territories, which would deliver $30 billion in new funding to public hospitals over 5 years from 2020, providing almost $128 billion over 5 years from 2020. It will see tens of millions of services for Australians in our public hospitals, supporting thousands of new frontline doctors and nurses in those hospitals. Every year would be a record funding amount for every state and territory, and we welcome the decision by the New South Wales and Western Australian governments to sign onto an agreement. Now, the former hospital agreement, developed under Labor, allowed for uncapped funding. Labor then refused to back its unfunded $57 billion hospital promise, finding just $2 billion.
Order, Senator Fierravanti-Wells. Time has expired. Senator McCarthy, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. The latest cut to public hospitals represents just 1/90th of the $65 billion handout to big business. Isn't it clear the Turnbull government is more interested in helping the big end of town than ensuring Australia's public hospitals are properly funded?
Senator Fierravanti-Wells.
Can I just say to you, Senator, if anyone is shortchanging patients, it's the Leader of the Opposition, whose phantom hospital funding plan only accounts for 4% of their $57 billion. And of course, in Victoria, maybe the Andrews government should spend taxpayers' money on hospitals rather than rorts for votes, and putting politics ahead by turning his back on more than $7 billion of additional funding from this government in hospitals. Now, can I, as you do come from the Northern Territory, Senator, I just wanted to add some information which may be of value to you. Commonwealth funding for public hospital services in the Northern Territory has increased from $135 million in 2013-14 to $316 million in 2020-21, or 134.8% over
Order,
this
Senator
period.
Fierravanti-Wells. Senator Cormann.